Welcome back to the Fuse Show, everybody. My name is Bud. I am an account executive here at xfusion.io and co-host of the Fuse Show. I am excited to be joined today by my guest, Lisha Davis. Lisha is the founder of Pave, as well as CEO of Arable. She is an innovation leader, venture builder, startup investor, and business strategist who has served on various sides of the business table. Before launching Arable Ventures and Pave, Lisha served as the founder and head of Vanguard's innovation studio. She is an entrepreneur turned corporate, then back to founder. She is passionate about solving big human problems and lifting the next generation of diverse founders and funders. Lisha, thank you for being on the show.
Good to be here, Bud. Thank you.
Yeah. Kind of before we get started talking about Pave, I just kind of want to give the listeners a taste of who you are. You wear multiple hats, and you are very busy. As I can count right now, you hold 6 positions at the moment with different companies, being whether that's investing or CEO or startup founder, plus 4 mentorship programs. You are very, very busy, and you also are a podcast guest. How do you keep everything spinning?
Boy, I think you're perhaps giving me more credit than due. I don't know that everything spins at all times. There's definitely some broken plates on the kitchen floor for sure. I would say out of all of that, the most of my focus is on Pave and Arable Ventures, right? Which is the new startup that just beta launched, as well as the innovation and strategy consulting firm that I operate. And the rest of it is more of I think interests that I am passionate about, as well as just continue to stay connected to the ecosystem. So it's probably a little bit of an 80-20. So it might appear, if you're probably gathering all of this from LinkedIn, that I'm, covering equally in all these spaces, but it's primarily 2, and then a smattering of the other. But I also have a really good team that keeps me well oiled and honest.
That keeps you going for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would guess that it's probably not equally over all parts, but that's still, you're covering a lot of ground. And I mean, it's a lot to handle. You are the CEO of a company and you're starting a new company.
Yes.
How do you do that, especially in this time of COVID?
Sure. I think this story is probably not atypical. For many founders or serial entrepreneurs, we are highly curious, passionate people, type A personalities very often that gets really interested or fixated on something and then pursues that, but is continuously keeping our eyes, ears, and antennas open for other things that are really interesting, right? So that's kind of what happened. While I was working on Arable, I got the itch to start something new, really as a function of noticing a potential need in the marketplace. And so you start to explore one while you're still focusing on the other. And as there's proof points and certain ideas and concepts that become validated enough, you just find yourself juggling both. I will say that is not the end state or sustainable long term, right? The thinking very much is, hey, if Pave really takes off, then I do have to make some serious considerations about how I want to manage my time and participation in Arable Ventures. Yeah.
Sure. All right. So let's go ahead and kind of get into it. What is Pave? Tell our viewers, what is Pave?
Sure.
And what do you do there?
Yep. So Pave is here comes some buzzy words, future of work, human capital startup that is focused on helping people figure out who they should be when they grow up, or if they're already grown, who they want to reinvent themselves to be. So it is very much about mastering the art of career exploration and pivoting. And there's certain elements of it that feels a little bit like Match.com or eHarmony, but instead of from people to people, it's from people to career paths. And then a host of tools, resources, services to help people make that transition as smoothly and as successfully and quickly as possible.
Yeah. So I was looking at this and I'm like, man, I could have used this, several months ago. I was working in the oil field and I got COVID fired, and I was out of
Sorry
job
to
for
hear that.
15 months. Well, that's okay.
Wow.
I ended up here.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out of work for 15 months, and then I talked to Jim, the CEO here at Xfusion, and ended up with this job. I never, ever, ever thought that I'd be in a tech job, but here I am. But I mean, that was quite a journey,
Right.
just kind of trying to survive for 15 months.
Right.
And when I was looking at your service, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to ask you a quick question. I was curious on that journey. Did you choose this now career path that you're on, or how did that come about? And I'm curious even what tools, resources, people, and conversations you leveraged to help you land here.
Well, I was, I'm the father of 5, so I was just in survival mode, and I was taking, every job that I could get, just kind of, here's a job under the table, whatever, like just take whatever job you could get. And then Jim, I've known Jim for 12 years. He's the CEO here, or one of them. And he came to me and said, hey, I know you. I know your work ethic. I know your character. I know you don't know anything about tech. And he just moved back to Colorado from Missouri, I believe.
Okay.
So we had a lunch together. I was down in Denver area because my son had just had a stroke. And he's like, hey, let's have lunch. And he said, I know who you are. I know what kind of character you have. I know what kind of work ethic you have. You don't know anything about tech. I can teach you that. I can't teach a lot of other people those other
traits,
things.
Yeah.
So he's like, what do you say we give this a shot? He said, let's give this thing 6 months and see how it works out. I'm like, I have nothing to lose. It scared me. I've been, like I said, in the oil field, driving trucks, doing that kind of thing for a long time as a correctional officer, that kind of thing. So I've been in dangerous situations, but this scared me. But I'm like, I have nothing to lose. I've been out of a job for a long time. So I just took it and jumped in, into a startup. So that's kind of how I got into this. And then like 6-7 hats later, here I am hosting a podcast.
That's so awesome. I actually really, really love that story. Kudos to you for being so brave to try something new and different. But even something that you said there, Bud, when you talked about, your colleague recognizing the underlying qualities that you have around work ethic and resiliency, right? And kind of being able to tackle different things. Those are really the underlying ingredients that make you successful in your previous roles, but also can make you very successful in this role. And that's really one of the core tenets of Pave, which is we know that we exist in a world where everything is about titles and these kind of sexy, glossy words, which means a lot and means nothing at the same time. And so what's important, more important, we think, is the underlying qualities, traits, characteristics, skills, experiences, strengths that people bring with them based on all their past experiences that could make them really suitable candidates for the next. So don't worry about if I've done a whole bunch of this same job before in the past. That could only be one indicator that I might be suitable for this. But what if I never did anything like this before, but I still have all the underlying traits that would make me a really good candidate for this? So we are kind of on a mission to peel back the onion, if you will, strip away from all these, cool sounding, but nobody really knows what it means, titles and words and things like that, and really try to get to the essence of what would make somebody really suitable for a specific job, role, or career path. And let's help to surface those up to people who may not have otherwise realized it.
Yeah. No, it's great. And, for somebody that was in a situation like mine, it could take that 15 months and move it up quite a bit.
Sure, right.
Using Pave, awesome. Yeah, I was, like I said, I was looking at your website and going, man, I could have used that,
Thank you.
quite a
Me
while
too.
ago. But
Yeah, for sure. And even when I was in college and grad school, right? The other interesting dynamic that we've learned in talking to users and studying the marketplace is that it's kind of silly and funny and unfortunate that in today's system, education system, we ask our young people when they're in high school, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? They don't know. They have no idea.
Mm-mm.
They haven't done much, right? They're not exposed to much oftentimes. Or maybe to the extent they think about career pathing based on what they see in their immediate environment, which is their family, right? And their friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're asking someone to choose a huge decision at a time where they really have no clue. So it naturally puts people in this awkward state of mind where they don't have enough information to make that decision. And then it just escalates, right? So if you pick something, then you go to a certain college and major in something. Okay, then you try to recruit for that type of job and path, and then you're kind of laid out something for yourself, whether that's really suitable or not. And in the best case, some people realize early on that's not for them, and they are able to tap into the right networks to help them figure out where else they can go and succeed in that. In the worst case, people kind of get stuck or trapped doing something that they picked when they were 18 or 22 without enough knowledge of the other possibilities that their skill set and strengths can pivot themselves into. So that's what we're trying to also help get ahead of is there's two primary users for Pave. I properly identified one, Bud, which is folks who are what we'll call career transitioners, right? Folks who may have had a successful career, is looking to pivot or change on their own accord, or perhaps they find themselves laid off. And then the other target market is folks who are college students and grad students who are naturally at this career exploration juncture, trying to figure out what they may want to do for the first time.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I have one of my daughters, my middle daughter. She's 16 and she wants to be a pediatrician. I have no doubt. Like she is on a
awesome.
career path to be that. My other kids, my oldest son never ever thought that he would be a music teacher. And then that's what he ended up being. My other kids are like, no idea. Just like you said, right? Like it is unfair to ask them, when you're 13, 14, 15 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? My 13-year-old is sure that he's going to play, Major League Baseball.
Right.
He's not.
Right. Or be a pop star, right? Or be a singer, right? All these things, right? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's awesome. So,
thank you.
Good for you. And you have lots of coaching on here. You have,
so there's
there's so many different things that you have on this website.
Right. Yeah. Ultimately, we think about it as a ecosystem of resources, tools, community networks that allows people to get as much or as little support as they would like. So if you are kind of a DIY person and you just want to leverage the technology to do all the work for you, have at it. Maybe you just use Career Mapper and in the future Interview Boost and off you go. If you are the type of person who values and perhaps wants or needs more hands-on interaction, sure. You have a host of experts with true real-world experience that can give you the insider scoop and really help you in a hands-on way to navigate. So we're trying to build something that also takes into account different people's learning, exploration, decision-making models, some that respects people's individuality to do things on their own, and then some that offers really step-by-step guidance. Yep. Yeah. So check us out. Nice. Yeah. Joinpave.com. Like I said, beta just went live literally Thanksgiving week. So this is very fresh. And our hope is between now and the end of the year, letting the beta users really get in there, get under the hood, use as much of this as they can, and then offer up as much rich feedback as they're willing to offer.
Yeah.
Great.
All right. So let's kind of get into your journey here. You are a business owner.
Hmm.
You're running a business. You're starting one. Like we already covered this a little bit in the middle of a pandemic. Like, why now?
Yeah.
Is this just something that you just couldn't wait to start? Like you
Yeah.
just saw the need and you couldn't wait to start. Why now?
That's definitely a part of it, right? And
Yeah.
I should take a step back and say 2 years and 2 months ago was the last time that I had a job. And it was the corporate job of being the head of innovation at Vanguard, right? And I would argue that if you're in a corporate setting, being the head of innovation is kind of the best job you can have already. So I was incredibly lucky, fortunate, having a great time, doing interesting, meaningful work, working with some really fabulous, smart, hardworking people. But I was a little bit burnt out, right? I, for personal needs, needed to be back in New York. I wasn't at that time. And I was also interested in other problems outside of the world of finance and fintech. And so I made the really tough and I guess slightly surprising decision to leave corporate altogether. And my original plan was to take a self-imposed year-long sabbatical to eat, pray, love, bud. I was going to like travel and, have bagels at the park and read and think and, self-care and do all these things, right? Right. But life doesn't really go according to my plan oftentimes, because right after I left, I maybe sabbaticaled for like a month, and then there was a death in the family, so I had to tend to that. And then shortly after that, COVID happened. So it was like, well, what do I do? So the story of the journey has a very strong theme of kind of embracing the unknown, not being afraid of that change, and then just being really, I would say, alert to try to look for the signs of what the universe is kind of telling me where I need to go next. In the beginning, when COVID first happened, so maybe, or right before it was even happening, like January, February of last year, don't get me wrong, right? New year, new me. Okay, so sabbatical really wasn't quite successful, but now let me get into the new year. I was looking for jobs. I was interviewing in a frenetic way and had the good fortune of having some really great offers. Chief innovation officer at a large Fortune 500 company, chief strategy officer at another tech firm, another CEO role running a pretty prominent incubator. So there were great opportunities coming my way, but I just felt like something was a little bit missing. Like all of these great roles were fantastic, but I wasn't super excited about taking any of them. And I wasn't quite sure if that was because, I hadn't fully rested and done my whole travel bit yet, or did I feel like they weren't quite the right thing for me at that time. And so against good judgment at the time, people thought I was crazy. I turned all of them down and I continued to sit still a bit. And literally, I'll never forget, like I turned one thing down and then the next week, a former colleague called me and said, "Hey, I just realized you're no longer at the firm. I've got a really good friend who just got coined the chief innovation officer at this other company, and he could really use some help to figure out, how to be a chief innovation officer and how to do, quote unquote, do innovation in a large corporate setting. Will you just talk to him and see if you can share some best practices and perspectives?" Sure. And so I did that and ended up with the request of consulting. So that was the very first engagement with Arable Ventures. And it really was born out of market demand. When my former peers, so other heads of innovation at other companies, realized I was no longer in that role, they started to reach out just to catch up, stay connected, and also ask for some help. And so Arable Ventures was really born out of really the market demand at the time. And I did that for about 6 months, almost a year, very happily, was super grateful that I could do it completely remotely, right? The world was just on fire and we didn't know what was happening. And then I started to also get outreach by a lot of current and former colleagues who were, wanted career guidance and advice, right? Hey, I've been doing marketing for 20 years, but it's kind of not as what I want to do anymore. So what else could I be doing? Can I bat some ideas with you? Or, hey, my kid has just graduated with a communications degree. What should I be thinking about for him or her? And so, in 1 month, there was like 35 calls, and I realized, people are like, there's something here. I don't think that I'm smarter or more experienced or in a better position to, give advice more than other people in this arena. But it was just interesting that the confluence of people realizing they want to do something different, or they find themselves laid off, exacerbated by COVID, really put a pin in this specific gap in need of people don't know what they could be doing next. So I just became really fascinated in that, and probably then subsequently spoke to 300 people to understand kind of their perspectives on the topic. And one thing led to another, and Pave was born at the beginning of this year. So in both instances, I would love to say, but I was so smart and forward planning, and, this was all a part of my master plan of how to juggle two and all of these things, but it really wasn't. The first one was something that I did because my network wanted it and needed it. That really blossomed into something. And then the second thing was also recognizing that there's a need that perhaps the current marketplace solutions aren't quite solving as well.
The first one found you. Mm-hmm. Instead of you finding a niche that needed to be solved, the niche found you.
Right.
And that's good. That's kind of completely the opposite of how a lot of things are born. But people saw that you could help them, so it found you, and it was born that way. Yep. And then out of that same ilk, like the same thing kind of happened here, but you kind of reversed that a little bit, and then bore Pave out of that. So,
right.
It's kind of two sides to the same coin.
Right. Right.
Yeah. No, that's great.
And people probably reached out just because I've always been a really open and kind of transparent person. And I've been pretty open to share that I'm interested in lots of things, right? So while I was working in finance and investments, I was also really interested in strategy and general management and developing high-performing teams. And so I think this may be something for folks to think about who maybe have not left their corporate jobs, right? Which is, you don't have to just be known for one thing. If people start to see you very multifaceted, with the ability to be a subject matter expert on different things, they'll call you sometimes when you least expect it, and that small string might lead into, I don't know, this analogy, the knitting of a whole sweater. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Well, let's kind of dig a little bit deeper into that and
sure.
And say, these, you weren't really looking for these, but they came to you. You started them. Now you're a solopreneur. That's very, very difficult to do. We talked a little bit about this off air before we came on. You don't plan on staying that way, but you are now.
Yeah.
Most of my guests have co-founders, but being a solopreneur is kind of a different animal. Like, how do you try and build this up doing this on your own? Like, you have a team that you're building up underneath you, but I mean, everything falls on you. How do you balance all that?
Yeah, it's tough. And you're right. It's actually not my preferred state at all. Right. For Arable Ventures, it's okay. Because a lot of the times the clients are hiring me and my expertise, or even as I engage other members of the team or my network to collaborate on the work, there's a very definite role for me, right? Pave is really tough. And I'll tell you, Bud, when I first validated that there was a need there, and I started to give thought to building Pave, the now we know Pave, I first started to look for a co-founder. So I did go on 40 plus co-founder dates to try to see if I could find a co-founder to go on this journey with me, right? The messy, amazing, painful, teary-eyed, like stressful, all of the things, all of the emotional journey with me. And got close a couple of times, but for whatever reason, we just were not able to kind of make it work at that stage. That doesn't mean that I intend to stay a solo founder. My hope is still to be able to expand the team and perhaps, bring on a co-founder. Certainly I need a COO and others to join the team, but it's really tough. I wish I can tell you that I figured it all out, but every day is a different balancing act. So I definitely time box my days and my weeks to the allocations of time that I'm spending on Pave versus on Arable Ventures. That means also 2 sets of teams, 2 sets of business partners, 2 sets of everything. So it's tough. I feel like I'm being split in 2 any given day of the week. And I do find it challenging. And so if people have also tips, like, let me know. But one thing that I'll also say is there are team members, and I want to maybe explain how I view team. To me, team is not just execution help, right? Or operations. So yes, I have, designers, data scientists, developers, app developers. It's not just these people are doing things on my behalf. I'm also really, because I'm a solo founder right now, I really value the input and the feedback and the problem solving and the pushing on my thinking that comes from these team members too. So I probably allocate more time each week than maybe some founders, really just pulling the team aside to say, all right, guys, this week, I like this. I hate this. I'm feeling this way. How are you guys feeling? And we actually kind of unpack and brainstorm and have a lot of discussions and debates together on the things that are kind of big and important and also small and just urgent or annoying together, right? And I hope to bring on team members that take some sense of ownership and pride to see how this thing gets shaped out and built and what happens as it grows and evolves with me, and is not just here to say, okay, pay me so I could do a task and then be done. Right. My team is very vocal about disagreeing with me, and I love that. Sometimes, that's good. Sometimes, yeah. Some days I'm like, well, nobody agrees with me on anything, and that's okay, because I also recognize I'm too close to it. When something is your baby and you're consumed with it, you're not able to see everything sometimes in an objective way, and so I want to have the continuous feedback and input from users for sure, right? But also from team members, from outsiders who can just challenge the thinking and make sure that we're being as sharp as we can be. So yeah.
Yeah. When you build your team, until you get your other founding members, when you build your team, I would consider you kind of a humanness. And I don't know if we're going to have time to go into what all I mean by that in this podcast. But you want humanity to get better, from what I can tell, from what I've studied about you. Do you build your team around that? Is that what you want the rest of your team to be as well? Or do you build your team kind of more along kind of the technical lines to help the business get better? How do you try and build your team to make this thing better?
Yeah. I look in the real world, being a founder, right? When time and capacity and money are also always at stake, there's kind of ideally how you want to do things, and then there's reality of what ends up happening. So I would say, obviously, I strive to do things as optimal and as ideal as possible, as much as possible, but there's always compromises to be made. But what I like in team members is to see kind of the evidence that somebody is operating at the intersection of what I'll call heart, head, and hands, right? So their heart is in the right place. They very much care about bettering humanity. They are values and principles based. They care about the problem that Pave is trying to solve. It's not just about another project, right? Another product, another buck to make. And that we're really aligned at kind of the values perspective. From a head standpoint, yes, they have to be very proficient in whatever their craft is, right? And sometimes people are deep domain experts. And sometimes what I like is generally people who are what I'll call double majors, or both an all-star and a superstar. So they may have one or two areas of really strong domain expertise, but they also have a smattering of know enough to be dangerous in other areas. Because I find that people who kind of are interested in multiple things, but also have the ability to focus and demonstrate excellence in a few things, is kind of the type of folks that I have had the most experience working with in the corporate or in the business setting, and can bring fresh ideas and is not afraid to think differently, especially from me, and push and challenge that, right? And then lastly, with the hands is, are they hardworking? Are they dedicated, right? Are they resilient? Are they going to give up easily? And so it's all of the demonstration of kind of what type of teammate somebody is through the efforts and how they choose to allocate their time. And so those, I would say, are probably the way that I think about team composition, and whether you're a marketer or a designer or a PR person or an engineer, I tend to look for elements of those similar types of attributes across all team members.
Nice. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Another thing I wanted to kind of ask you was, you have a strong background in venture capitalism, right? Like you have
I have some background in I have a finance background for sure. But yeah, I've been angel investing for maybe the last 5 years, and the last couple of years have gotten much more steeped into the world of corporate venturing as well as traditional venture capital. Yes.
Yeah. So compared to me, that's a you're deep into it.
Okay.
So that being said, how do you plan on going about, if you want to divulge this, capitalizing Pave? Are you planning on bootstrapping that? Or are you going to try and get, capital money, and how has your background in that kind of made your, tipped your hat in the way that you're going to do this?
Right. So traditionally, the sequence of events is, right, co-founders, idea, scrappy prototype, fundraising to be able to get team to build the real thing, right, and launch and scale and so on and so forth. I actually took a little bit of a different approach in this instance, and I don't know that it was the right call. I've learned a ton along the way. It's been really tough. So I have bootstrapped thus far. So Pave has not raised capital yet. I suspect we will next year, to build the product, our MVP, and kind of beta test it, right? 2 reasons why I've chosen to do that. One, obviously, focusing my only half-time attention, right, because I still have Arable, on Pave itself to build out the product and test it versus fundraising. So one, it was just out of a necessity play that I had to do that. And the second thing is, quite frankly, as much as I love Pave and I believe in the problem and the solution, I don't know if I figured out the absolute best way to get after it yet. Right. And so I wanted to also essentially eat my own cooking and give myself advice that I would give other founders, which is, have you proven product market fit yet? Right? Do you have strong enough signals that you'll have product market fit? And so with myself, I was trying to set that bar to say, okay, do what you can to prove that the marketplace does want the version of the solution that you've cooked up. And then as you do that, let's then raise capital as a means to scale that versus as a way to build that out and test that to begin with. right? So I don't know that that's right or wrong. I'll say some days I'm like, this was the stupidest decision I ever made when it's like 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm still plugging away. I'm like, who does this? Who's splitting their time running two things and like bootstrapping? But like I said, it's been a really interesting journey and set of lessons learned to know, like, yeah, I did save a lot of time in certain instances, and in others, I have to make very limited specific choices because I didn't fundraise and funds are not, unlimited, or the pool is not as large as if I just, went out and raised $1 million off the top. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. We talked a little bit about, before we came on, about all the hats that you're wearing. And I mentioned it a little bit before in this podcast. We talked about you being an investor. We didn't talk about you being a professor at all, but you are a CEO, a startup founder. You're kind of a women in, I said a women in tech advocate.
Yeah, definitely.
You said a women in general advocate, a women of color advocate.
Yeah.
Before we came on. What kind of pushes you to be all these things, right? Like what is your why? Like why do you push? From what I can tell, why do you push so hard? Because you kind of poo-poo that a little bit. And you're like, I'm not as much as you say I am, but there's a lot there.
Yeah. Well, I am very much motivated and driven by a challenge. And I have the personality type that I operate at my best when I'm busy and busy with different things. And so it's a little bit of like, okay, just knowing and accepting myself. This is how I am. For years, I try to change that and just say, no, pare down to just do one thing. Just focus on this one thing. It's just me. I operate best when under pressure and in that type of environment. So some of it is I can't help it. But also I am trying to build something that has a true impact, right? And I want to do it as much and as quickly as possible. And made that determination that there's going to have to be some sacrifices that come along with it. Right? Personal sacrifices such as personal life, time, all of those things. I'm also a single working person, right? So I, don't have children to be responsible for right now, right? There isn't somebody, COVID, there isn't somebody in my household that I have to also tend to, right? And so I have kind of these unusual circumstances given this pandemic that I'm able to be very heads down and selfish right now to really push. And so my why is very much, wanting to achieve the greatest results or see if I can in as least of an amount of time as possible, and making that deliberate decision that I was going to, all in, let's put the full strength behind it. And then also I'm interested and curious in different things. And in addition to that, just my natural best preferred way to work, it also stimulates and fulfills me, right? So the teaching, I would say, engaging with the students, I get as much out of it, maybe hopefully, as they get from me, right? The discussion and debate that I have with startup founders who I mentor, advise is really interesting. Right. Still doing due diligence and some deal flow stuff with the fund that I'm associated with on the venture side keeps me on my toes to know what's the emerging trends that are happening out there, but also keeping myself honest that, yes, I'm an investor, but I'm also a founder. So I have to treat myself the way that investors would treat me. Right. And so, yeah, so it's definitely there is very much it's good for me to maintain exposure to these various diverse things because it helps me be as creative and as kind of nourished as I need to be mentally. Yeah, and then you touched on the DEI piece, the diversity and inclusion piece. And look, we just all know, right? The numbers are, and the story is still so abysmal. It has been, it is, and it likely will continue to be for quite some time. That diverse founders and funders are just very, very minuscule compared to, the overall pie. And so I'm also always on this very passionate mission to change that. And so one way is to demonstrate that I am a woman of color founder. I am a woman of color investor. And I want to see more women and or people of color doing the same. And so it's so near and dear to my heart. I kind of can't let that go. So instead of cutting off something, I'll just make more time in my schedule to kind of accommodate activities that really, really feed into that.
Well, nice. Yeah. And you're killing it. So
thank you. Job. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Someday I kill it. Some days I kill it, and some days it kills me. But that's the journey of yes.
That's the journey of a founder, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We could probably sit here and talk for quite a while longer, but I want to be very cognizant of your time and get you out of here before your next meeting. So we'll go ahead and bring this thing to a close.
Okay.
And I'll do that by asking you the same two questions that I ask everybody that's on this program.
Okay.
And that is, what advice would you give to founders or soon-to-be founders that are going to be watching this program?
Oh, is that the final question, Bud?
That's one of them.
Okay. Okay. So I would say maybe this is a two-pronged advice. One is, if you're waiting to be ready, you're going to be waiting forever. So you got to get in there and, try. And so that's a lot of people I talk to. They're like, oh yeah, but I don't know how to do this, or I haven't done that before. I don't come from a tech background. No, right? Definitely, research, self-study, talk to people, but be hands-on and just get in there to do it. That's one piece. And the second piece is be voracious about your learning and seeking out perspectives from people, especially people who are different than you, right? So build teams, build founding teams, gather feedback from the marketplace and your users that are counter to yours to help you kind of refine your thinking. I can't tell you how many times where I was like, so sure, this thing's I'm telling you, this is my best thinking yet. And it was a dud, right? And so maybe the last part I'll say is, the other advice is be maybe attached to the journey and reflecting on the things that you want to keep doing or need to improve and change doing versus the outcomes, right? Because outcomes we can't control. But I can control, how skilled I am or, how much effort I put into a certain activity or task. So I would say, get in there and try. Surround yourself with great people who think differently and know different things than yourself. And then don't be too emotionally attached to outcomes. Otherwise, I would be crying all the time. But attach yourself to kind of the journey and the underlying activities and kind of skills that you'll need to develop over time that will hopefully set you up to be successful.
Nice.
Okay.
I like that. And the first part of that answer is the same thing that I tell who will soon be my, future son-in-law. Is
oh wow,
if you wait, don't wait until you're ready to ask. Right. If you wait until you're ready, it will never happen, my friend.
Getting married, having babies,
just
right?
Ask her.
Starting businesses.
Just ask her already.
You just got to do it. Yes, you just got to do it. Yeah, right. That's right.
Yeah. And then finally, the last question is, what is the best way for our viewers to get in touch with you if they so choose? Oh,
sure. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That would probably be the fastest. My email is also Lisha@joinpave.com. So just first name @joinpave.com, and folks can just reach out. And if they say, hey, heard you on Bud's podcast, that'll also help me put a reference point to the connection. So I welcome folks to get in touch with me, share your stories, your tips and techniques on founder life. And if there's something that I can share to be helpful, don't hesitate to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on this program
You're
today.
welcome.
I very much enjoyed it.
Same.
And, you have
Likewise.
a really great rest of the night.